Welcome to Mattys Mental Health Podcast, aiming to spread awareness on mental health by sharing the real-life stories. Hello, Mr. Shawn Aucoin.
Hey, Matty, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you today?
Doing just fine.
Tell me more about just fine.
Just fine?
What exactly do you mean by that?
It's an unexpected question, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess just fine. Nothing's wrong, I guess.
Good. Glad.
Had to really think about that.
Thanks for coming to my house and doing a podcast with me.
It's a beautiful house. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to have you here. Happy to talk about you and your story and your life.
Yeah, no, I don't usually talk about me.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So everybody buckle in. Buckle up your seatbelt. Tell us about you.
Tell us about me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm originally from New Brunswick, born and raised. Lived there right up until I was 23. No, I was 23. I moved over here to go to university. That didn't work out. Was a cook for 13 years. This is coming out really sporadically. Hope everybody's keeping
It's
track.
kind of like Plenty of Fish description. You know.
But yeah, I cooked for 13 years. And
So what age? Like what, 13 years?
so I would have started when I was 17. It was the summer before I was in grade 12. Just started working at the local Irvin where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I was like June when I started, and I had just gotten hired as a cashier. And like cash jobs suck. No one likes working cash.
Yeah. Unless you're on Pogie, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Then you get paid twice.
Exactly.
That's really good.
But
Allegedly, apparently. That's what I heard.
nah, and yeah, it was roughly a month. It was like the middle of July. Like, I noticed the schedule was weird. There was a lot of people scheduled, and then the boss takes me aside and says, "So you're starting in the kitchen tomorrow."
Oh.
And at that time, I thought, awesome. I think cooking's fun. I don't have to deal with customers anymore. The girl I was seeing at the time, she also worked with the kitchen. I was like, oh, I'll get to work with her more.
Yep.
We just ended up working opposite shifts. That's how that worked. But yeah, it did not take long before I wasn't liking it nearly as much as I thought I would.
And you did it for 13 years.
Yeah.
More years.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, it was always, back then, it was like, sure, I don't like it, but I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to get a job as soon as I'm finished college, and, excuse me.
It's all good.
And then I never have to go into a kitchen again. But, so, I think by the time I went to college, been cooking for it was only 2 years.
Wait, I want to back you up for a second. So, like, in terms of mental health, what was your experience like even just before that, like in high school and stuff like that?
Before I started cooking at all?
Yeah.
Well,
Was it a factor before you started cooking?
I don't really think so.
Okay.
You know, I was always a generally happy guy. You know, that was just always spending my weekends with friends, regardless if like any of us had money or not. We just hang out, you know. But of course, you know, just you get to that age where you're like, I need some money in my pocket. Be nice to do things. Stop asking mom and dad for change.
$20.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's throw me a 20 and tell me to leave me alone. But yeah. But then, of course, you get a job, and then there goes your weekends. Like, and that's the other thing with working in a kitchen, is your days off are sporadic. Like, you're not on any sort of consistent schedule. Like, you might be for a little while. There'd usually be like little like 3-4 week spurts where I'd have the same days off, but they'd always be like, Monday, Tuesday, such and such. Sometimes they weren't even together.
Yeah, but it's tough. Like even the shifts are usually evenings, weekends, right? It's like all the social times.
Yeah, and working after school and stuff. Yeah, that was my entire grade 12 year. The only weekends I had off were weekends I had to ask for off. And then when I graduated, started full time, and felt worse after that because it was just working all the time.
Yeah.
Not never hang out with friends. I'd hang out between shifts. If I was working nights, I'd get done work, go hang out with my friends, go, get a buzz on or whatever, and go to work with a hangover the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's just, and of course, as I'm working, I've still got it in my mind. I don't have to do this forever, but I mean, news for me. I did it for a while, but yeah, and cooked consistently right up until I started college.
And what'd you go to college for?
Electrical, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Went to college when I was 19. It's a great time to go to college because then you're old enough to party. You can buy your own alcohol. You don't have to get someone else to buy it for you.
Yeah, the freedom of college.
Yeah. And at that time, I had managed to work it out with the restaurant I was working at that I had every other weekend off. Because I actually think I told them, like, I was going to go work somewhere where they give younger people every other weekend off. And they needed me enough that they said you could have every other weekend off. Just, give us 1 or 2 days during the week.
It's good negotiating.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, it's not too often when you say, I'm going to leave if things don't change, and things actually change at a restaurant. It's not super common because a lot of restaurants, it's just a revolving door for employees. Like, they come and go.
Yeah, it seems like that. I worked in one restaurant. I worked in two, one very briefly, but it seemed like that. Like, especially in the kitchen too, it seemed like.
Yeah.
In the kitchen, like there would be like, it seemed like every other week there was like a new person there.
Yeah.
Cooking for a bit, and then like there'd be like a couple people that stuck around, but there would always be like just new people and shit.
Yeah, and it's always the very middle of the road people that'll stick around. Like, they're okay at their job when they want to be, but like it's the people who you would really love to stick around that leave as soon as they possibly can because they know they're not getting what they want out of this job.
Yeah.
Then there's the people who are fired really quick, and they're probably fired for a fairly good reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Worked part-time all the way through college, and then I finished college, and to my surprise at the time, I couldn't find a job in the field I had studied in.
So did you go to college in New Brunswick?
Yep, NBCC St. Andrews.
And then there wasn't much work around there, like around your hometown?
No, because you had to find an electrical company that's looking for apprentices, and it's just no one seemed to want to hire an apprentice. It's that classic, I need a job so I can get experience. I can't get a job because I don't have experience.
Right.
That sort of endless loop.
Do you think it's the same way now? Like, I know it's not on PEI where
No.
we are right now, but over there, do you think it's the same now? Because I know on PEI, it's like they're hiring a shitload of people now.
On PEI, they'll hire you if you just want to try it out. You don't need any previous experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm not too sure what the hiring's like back home. I'm guessing maybe they're hiring a little more just because I feel like with COVID and everything got so backed up.
Yeah.
That they're still catching up. Which
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons there's still so consistently so much work here, because everything got so far behind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent roughly a year trying to find a job in electrical.
Buddy making a guest appearance, by the way. Walked across the frame.
Aw. Just
Hanging
gotta
up.
let everybody know I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, but you know I'm here.
Yeah. Part of the show.
And yeah,
So you go back to cooking then because you couldn't get a job in
yeah.
electric.
Well, that's the thing. I never stopped cooking. It's just
Went back to full time.
yeah, and it was roughly a little less than a. Well, basically, it was like my job search started as just I'm looking to be an apprentice electrician, and then I just wanted just gonna get a job in any construction, and then eventually it was like I just want to move out of my parents' house. Like I had friends in Fredericton, and that was where I was gonna move to. It was where I spent a ton of my spare time. Like when I had those every other weekend off, it was Fredericton most of the time. So I started looking for cooking jobs in Fredericton. And summer before I moved out, I had actually gotten a part-time. Well, so one place had basically promised me a job. Then I waited for my start date. Hadn't put in my notice at the Irving, but I had told them I was leaving. And then the job fell through. And I had already hired my replacement, so I wasn't getting so many hours. So I ended up taking a part-time job in Fredericton with a catering company. And it was like, let's say like every other weekend. It was basically just did weddings. She'd give me like a start time, and then that'd be it. Be this place for 9 a.m. kind of thing. And that was, well, I mean, at the time, I was having a good time because I had an excuse to be in Fredericton with my friends. Most of the time, I didn't have to work super early in the morning, so I could go get fucked up with my friends.
Yeah.
And then go to work. And then there were a couple times when, I'd start at 9, but then I wouldn't get done until like 1 o'clock in the morning. Because I'd be the one stuck there doing dishes after everybody's gone. Anyway, I'd finish my job, finish up, drive from Fredericton back down to my parents' house because I had a shift at the Irving in the morning. So that was pretty hard on me. The last weekend I worked for them, she told me to be there Saturday morning at 10 a.m. That's all I knew. So I was like, 10 a.m., perfect. So I get a case of beer, I drink the case of beer, and then we go out, and I black out. I don't know. Well, no, I didn't black out all night, but like I came to falling, and someone come over to help me up. They're asking me, "Are you okay?" And as I'm saying yes, I realize it's a cop. And she says, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going back to my friend's house." Obviously, I didn't say it that clear. I probably slurred it pretty hard. But she's like, "No, you're not. Get in the car." So she took me to the drunk tank. And I slept on a concrete bench. Woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, just kind of poked my nose out of the bars. Hello? Hello? And then, yeah.
Didn't make the 10 a.m.
Oh, I made it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, made it there for 10 a.m. and I worked until 2 a.m. Worked 16 hours. Like, if that wasn't karma saying, stop doing that.
Yeah. 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 That's like classic things that happen when you're young.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Partying and then working and then that's wild.
Oh, yeah. And that was always a big part of me in kitchens, too. Was like, eventually, in the fall, I did find a full-time job. So I moved out to my friend's place. And, yeah, it was drinking in between almost every shift. I'm working at a hotel restaurant. So when I get done work, the bar's still open. So basically, I take my uniform off and get started,
So like you mentioned that you didn't really like it from
Yeah.
the start. So how did you feel about it like as time progressed? I mean, what are we 5 6 years now in? Like, how are you feeling about like going to work and now like drinking
Yeah.
between shifts? Like, how are you feeling about while you're there, and how you feeling about like how life's going?
Yeah. See, and that's like where. Well, that's just where I was in a new place. It's like say this was like 5 years in, 5 years going on 6. Like I'm convinced that since I'm in a new place, things are gonna get better. Like that. Like there's a part of me that really wants to love this job, but the longer I'm there, the same shitty things start coming up, right? Like I said, all the really good employees, they start moving on to better jobs because they don't want to be where I am. Just kind of think.
How are you feeling about it?
Well, I mean, I guess like I was pleading ignorance to the job itself because I was having so much fun outside of work. But then as time went on, it was definitely starting to grate on me. Like it would have been, I'm gonna say, so after not like the following summer, say we're at 2011 at this point. No, 2013. Just flipping through the years here. Yeah, that like, and we got slammed with a really busy summer, and then that's when I started not liking my job again. Because shortly before this, 2 or 3 guys had left. We've got new guys that, don't seem to care about their job as much. And this is when I started to take a worse turn. It was like I didn't want to be there anymore. And that was when I started thinking about university. We'll back up a little bit before I started thinking about university. So, end of that summer, it was, middle of the night. I had gone to a house party with my roommates, got back. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I decide I'm bored, and I go for a bicycle ride. And I'm just cruising, and I come around a corner, I nail the curb, and I flip over my handlebars. And I get up, and I'm thinking, my shoulder really hurts. Like, I actually called 911 to get someone to come look at me. And when the ambulance came, and they said, can you take your shirt off? I took my shirt off. And I had a big old scab here on my back shoulder. And, they looked me over, and they said, well, you're moving around okay. You're probably fine. You're going to be sore in the morning, but you're okay. Next morning when I woke up, I was not okay. Like it hurt to move. And anyway, and of course work had texted me asking me if I could come in early, and I woke up an hour after I got that text. So then I messaged them back. It's like, I don't think I can come in today. Anyway, I walked to work, and someone there took me to the hospital, and turns out I'd broken my collarbone.
Shit.
Yeah. And so that was a month off, and it was during that month off when, obviously I have a lot of time to reflect, and that was when I decided I should probably go to university. Because that was when I was like, I should do something I want to do. Like, forget about money. Like, just do something to make yourself happy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so applied to university, got accepted, kept working. And then like a few months later, say like we're into winter, go through winter, into like before spring. Anyway, that was like I'd gotten switched to mornings. Like I had up until that point I'd been working nights. They switched me to mornings, but like my habits didn't change. Like I was still drinking a lot. Like there were a few times when I still half in the bag when I went to work.
How often would you say you're drinking? Like every day, or?
Not quite every day. No, 3 or 4 times a week.
Mm.
And that's like drunk 3 or 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And would you say that was related to like the culture of, I mean, was it just what you were doing at that time? Was it like what your friends were doing too? Do you think it was related to the culture of cooking? Because I know that, I know that the culture of cooking is, there's like they drink a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, and like, and I definitely won't completely blame cooking, but it definitely didn't discourage me from any of those habits.
Yeah.
Like
The
from,
restaurant industry as well too, like you said, like after shifts, like I know it's even common for like wait staff and stuff. Like when a bar will close, like they'll just like drink together after. It's kind of like a thing they do.
100%. Yeah. And I was no different. No, it was getting drunk all the time. And this was really affecting my mood. Like it was just sour when I got to work in the mornings. Like I had to be there for 5:30. Like this is like the early shift. And then sometimes I'd work late, so like I'd get there before the sun comes up, and then the sun would be going down when I got done work. Yeah, and then one day, the chef comes up to me and just kind of asks, how are things going? And I just kind of shrugged and said, fine. I'm still alive. And he, like that was always, I was like, if someone asked how I was doing, it's just like, yeah, whatever, fine. Things are going, I guess. I guess my definition of fine has changed over the years now that we talked about that at the beginning. But anyway,
it's like a list with one box. It's like alive. Yeah, check.
Right. I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Are you excited?" He asked me if I was excited for school, and I said, "I guess so." Like I was pretty indifferent about it. Because at that point, I had decided I was going to school for music. And, in the back of my mind, like there was a part of me that didn't think that was a great idea. That thought that wasn't a good idea. And that it would just be a total failure. But I was more or less just trying to ignore that and say, everything's going to be fine. I can do this. But at the same time, the way I'm acting is making people ask questions, so that was why my chef asked me how I was doing. And then he said, "Can we talk in my office later?" I said, "Sure, whatever." And anyway, later came, he had some meetings, and then after his meetings, he took me into his office, and then he finally said, like, "Are you depressed?" And I hadn't really thought about it, and I said, I don't know. But then he asked me about thoughts of suicide. And truth was, like, I had never come up with a plan, but there was a part of me that was like, I don't care if I get up in the morning. Like, I don't care if I'm gone. Right? And this is the first time I've ever actually talked to someone about it. And like, I felt myself breaking down. Like, I cried a little bit when we talked about it. Right? And he, like, this was a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember how the conversation went, but, he more or less was telling me, like, it can be a chemical imbalance kind of thing, and, like, there's a lot of help you can get for it. Like, he talks about his struggles, he talks about his wife's struggles, like, and, like, I felt heard even though I wasn't asking to be heard,
Yeah.
And anyway, he gave me a couple days off, and then that was when, like, I went home that day, and I called and told my parents what had happened and the thoughts I was having, and, like, that was a rough phone call.
It's pretty, I mean, even just, like, that's pretty nice of him, wasn't it, to say that and to do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In a way, I owe him my life. Like, I could have been, like, if he hadn't had that talk, what would have happened, right?
Yeah. No, it's pretty amazing when you think about, like, Yeah. Think about like stigma and mental health. It's even like why I wanted to do this podcast and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
just one conversation with someone
Mm-hmm.
can change everything, or just like one, like, dude, listen, like I see something in you that I felt myself,
Yeah.
and like this is what happened to me. It's like you can't get help with this. Or he could have just been like an asshole to you, and then it just would have made you in like a, or he could have said nothing.
Yeah.
But it could have, you could have just went on how you were going.
Yeah.
What was your parents' reaction, and were you nervous to tell them?
Oh yeah. I had like no part of me wanted to have that conversation.
I guess even just before that, like how did you feel about him saying that? And like you mentioned like you didn't really think of it in terms of depression, and
Yeah.
like how did you feel after that conversation? Or yeah.
Well, it we'll say it felt a little relieving.
Yeah.
You know? Like it already felt better because for the first time I had actually confronted that there was something wrong.
Mm.
Not necessarily that there's something wrong with me, but like wasn't the proper way to think. Wasn't on a good path mentally.
Yeah. How did the conversation with your parents go?
Well, like I more or less, I didn't say suicide or kill myself. I said, Mom, I want to give up.
Yeah.
You know, she kind of broke down. She's like, no, you don't want to give up. You know? And of course, the next thing is she says, like, I'm coming to get you. And I'm like, no, Mom, you don't have to come up. And she's like, oh, no, I'm coming. And then at the time, Dad was working at West. And of course, he calls immediately after that. And I thought, God, I love my dad, but he doesn't know how to address stuff like this. He's like, oh, the things will get better. And of course, that's what everybody tells someone when they find out they're depressed.
Yeah.
And I know we meant well, but like,
Yeah.
of course, just like, yeah, I know, Dad. Because I mean, I'm not gonna argue with him. Like,
Yeah.
I never wanted to like scream at him and be like, no, things aren't gonna get better.
Yeah, I think that's like the number one thing. Like people say that, but like when you're struggling, it's just so hard to. And it's true, but it's when you're struggling, it's so hard to hear it.
Yeah.
Because it's so far from. It's like when you're starting a marathon and then being like, it's nice when you finish.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You know.
Yeah. 100%.
It's true, but it's like you got some running at it, you got
Yeah.
You got a journey ahead of you too.
Oh yeah, and that was the start of quite the long journey because, like, I started with meds, and like I started taking meds.
So do you go to like you go to MD, or do you go to like a psychologist, diagnosed, or
No,
what?
I just went to my family doctor
Yeah.
and talked to him about it. And I don't think he was super quick to prescribe them. Like, that wasn't his first thing, but at the same time, he wrote me up a subscription.
Subscription to Netflix.
Wrote me a prescription for, I think, was the most mild of antidepressant, citalopram.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just lightest dose, and it's like take it so often, and yeah, and I started taking it, and like, guess I don't like, yeah, it definitely helped at the time, but at the same time, it almost felt like it was contributing to me not giving a fuck. Should I move closer? Can you hear me now? Wieners and gonads. But yeah, and this was in February, right before I moved over here. And I was moving in May.
Explain that, by the way, like helping you not give a fuck, or contributing to it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just well, initially when I didn't not giving a fuck was like, I don't care where I am in life as long as I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
And that having a good time was probably what led to depression. But like, it was just kind of stopping the upset feelings.
Mm.
But at the same time, I don't know if it was really helping the happy feelings. Like, my overall experience with medication was it just like kept you in the middle,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you didn't get any more depressed,
Mm-hmm.
but you couldn't really get happier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. It was weird. I heard it on the radio today. It was like psychologist talking, and they were saying like it can just kind of help you get your brain chemistry and some people take it forever. I mean, everyone's different, but
Yeah.
like it was in this case of this kid and had severe anxiety, and he was just saying it can help them get their brain chemistry to a place where they can manage and cope with it.
Yeah.
While they're learning the skills they need to cope with it on their own.
Exactly. And unfortunately, at that time, I thought this was what was going to cure me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wasn't changing any of my daily habits, you know. I think I drank slightly less amounts, but the meds, like, you're not supposed to drink with them, so it was just, was just hitting me even harder. Right? So, and then come the time to move over here to the island, and like, I didn't get any better. I thought I was, but I think that was just because I started drinking more. And also there's something to changing your location that makes you feel better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like when I first moved out of my parents' house and I moved to Fredericton, I felt great. And then after this time went on, I didn't feel so great.
Yeah, it's like the new thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and for that summer before I started university, you know, I was drinking all the time, like all the time. Like it got worse because I moved somewhere where I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody. And my mind was, I'm going to get shit-faced and just make friends at the bar. When in reality, I'd wake up the next morning and just have all these random numbers in my phone of friends I made at the bar that I'm too anxious to ever speak to sober.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when it came time to go to university, that was like the most anxious I've ever been. 'Cause like that thought of this is a bad idea, this is gonna fail, was still lingering. I'd also forgot to mention, after I moved over here, I decided to just stop taking my meds because I thought I was happy. I didn't think I needed them anymore. So I just flat out stopped taking them, which that's never a good idea. Especially not consulting anybody. I basically just called my mom and said, yeah, I'm not taking them anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I started at school and just like I said, didn't feel like I belonged. I wasn't making any friends. I was just that really anxious, quiet guy just sitting off to the side. And anybody who knows me, I'm generally a quiet guy. This is the most I've ever talked in my life right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just I'd get done school and either go to work or go home and be alone kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just riddled with anxiety, and then just that first semester did not go well. I failed 3 classes and I passed 2 by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah, and just for some context, like I know that you told me a bit about this before, but
yeah,
you went into music, right? And
yeah,
like could give a little context why you thought that might be a bad idea.
Because I had zero experience in music in any way besides being a general lover of music,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and music was always one of those things that would always bring me back up, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that was what I thought. It's like, I should get a career in music. How do I get a career in music? Well, you take music at university. Like that was the thought process behind that, right? Go to music, learn everything I can about music, and then I can write exactly what I want to write. Because just being really into rock and metal, I'm always thinking, whatever's on the radio's trash. Just being real negative about it.
Yeah.
I can remember going to the bars, and do you remember that song, What's the Fox Say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them playing that at the bar and just being like, why? What is going on? This was a joke on YouTube, and they're actually playing it at the bar, and people are getting down to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Getting down to it.
Yeah. But then, of course...
It's a good song, dude.
Chirp. It holds up. It holds up.
Holds the test of time. It's a classic. It's got like 20 million views on YouTube, maybe more. Maybe
Still count.
Maybe a billy. I don't know what it's at. I haven't checked. I feel like it's a lot.
Still never answered the question. What does the fox say?
No, but you told me that. I think that's so funny, just from the context of like I was in like band class in high school. I just took like jazz class. So
Yeah.
I have like an idea of like music theory, and like I even thought about music at one point, like going to university for it.
Yeah.
In grade 12,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like I have an idea of like what it takes, like the theory and like all the stuff.
Yeah.
And just going into that blind, like holy fuck.
Yeah, and that was the equivalent of running into a wall.
Yeah.
It's just like there's stuff coming at me I can't understand. One of the wasn't quite like first day, but like there's a class that requires you to sing in class, and I'm in front of a bunch of people I don't know, and for my own dumb reasons I can't get comfortable in front of them because I can't drink with them, or I haven't gotten drunk with them because I was also trying to balance work. I was working a lot when I first started in university. Like I remember I think my first week in university I still worked 30 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like, and I kept, I stuck it out right up until exams. And even the classes I knew I was failing, I still wrote those exams. It's because it's like, we got to see it through to the end. But like, in hindsight, I was not in a good place mentally at that point, because that voice in my head that was saying, you're going to fail, was 100% right. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with that. And anyway, going into second semester, like I'm going in defeated and don't think I can do any better. So that was when I finally used the university's resources and started seeing a counselor. And one of the first things they tell me is like, you should probably start taking your meds again. So, and of course, they tried to help me do other stuff too, but that was one of the things that they could tell, like I had bottomed myself out, and yeah, started taking meds again, and eventually started taking stronger meds because I had let myself get worse. Yeah, and I wasn't able to get myself back into the rhythm of school either. Like I ended up opting out of the second semester, and it was just like, we'll try again in the fall kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. And this whole time I'm living with strangers, and I didn't like them. Guy I lived with, there's two guys I live with. One of them's a cab driver who just parties all the time, which would seem like something I wanted to do, but at the same time, like, I wasn't his kind of person. And then my other roommate, parents paid all his bills. He just stayed in his room all the time. I don't remember his name. Right. I just know that there was someone in that room.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just, and I'd get to the apartment, I'd go to my room, I'd stay in my room. Yeah. But then, that following April, one of my like high school best friend moved over here, so I moved in with him and his girlfriend, and that definitely made things a lot better immediately and over the course of living with him, because he could see how bad I had gotten, and would eventually call me out and like tell me to like get my shit together more or less. Because I wasn't getting drunk as often, but when I had the chance, I got drunk and would black out. So then, gonna say first or second week of back to university, went to a party, and well, we were at a bar. It was a restaurant that was closing for the winter, and they were having their closing party, and I blacked out there and don't remember leaving the bar. Woke up the next morning, like just didn't know where I was. I roll around. I realize my face hurts, and when I open my eyes, I'm in the wrong apartment. I'm in the apartment I had lived in before I moved in with my friend.
What?
To this day, I don't know how I got there. Still don't know. I had gotten up, so of course I know where everything is, so I go to the bathroom, and that was when I could see the damage. Like, I've got road rash on both sides of my face. This eye's like almost swollen shut. Like, if I had to guess, I tried to ride my bike and fell off. Because like my bike was gone. Like that bike I had ridden drunk before was gone. And yeah, so I just basically gathered up what stuff. Like, thankfully I didn't lose my wallet and my phone. Gathered up my stuff, walked back to my apartment, went to bed, and got up that night when my buddy was getting home from work. And as I walked into my bedroom, he's just like, and he could see like the damage on my face. He's just like, dude, what happened? I shrugged. I said, I don't know. I don't remember. And just straight up like, dude, you got to stop drinking. Like, quit. Yeah, and then we went and sat down and we had a pretty serious talk. I mean, it was over bong rips, so don't remember it exactly, but no. Him more or less telling me, I'm worried about you. This is no way for you to live. Like, I don't want to see you like this. And yeah. So that was I quit drinking for a few months, but before I started drinking again, so obviously my reapproach university this time, I'm trying to take it a little easier. I'm only taking 3 classes, I'm taking 3 so I can still be considered a full-time student. Unfortunately, one of them is only worth half a credit, so it's not considered a full class. So I'm not considered a full-time student, so I can't get enough money from student loans to pay for school. So, unfortunately, that was it for university. Like, whether I wanted to or not, doors closed. Like, I'm done. And that was... Well, this was mixed, right? Like, because there's a part of me that's relieved I don't have to go back.
Yeah.
Because there goes all that anxiety of being in the classroom and trying to sing in front of people and all that. But at the same time, it's like, there, you failed. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I had to deal with that. And I can remember someone at work, like, kind of taking me aside one day and being like, dude... And like, not this wasn't the same that, like, I'm at a different restaurant now, but not the same conversation I would had in Fredericton. This was, dude, you need to get your shit together. You're gonna lose your job. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're not pulling your weight here at work. And that was when I finally told work I've got to drop out of university. Yeah. So back to the full-time kitchen life then. That was.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like the talk about failure.
Hmm?
I think we're also like programmed to fear failure.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like even with music,
Yep.
it seemed like you weren't in the right mental place at all.
No.
May not have been something that you
No. 100%.
was right for you, but and I'm just talking. I mean, I just had this thought about it, like in general. I think that
Mhm.
we're so programmed to avoid failure,
Yeah.
especially when it involves school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the worst thing. When really, like, you could have went to school for a lot longer and had
Yeah.
more student debt and
Yeah.
find out that you don't actually want to do it, or
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, and like you're saying, like we want to we start off fearing failure, but you don't get good at anything without fucking a few things up, right?
yeah, it's necessary
Yeah.
for success.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I dropped out, was working full time, but then when the winter came, like a lot of restaurants, hours died down. I'm not getting so many hours, but so that was when I picked up a second job. Then I decided when things were picking up that I was going to go work at that second job full time. That was being a manager at Pizza Hut, and it wasn't a good job. Like that was because like my thoughts back then were, okay, here we go. We're gonna make this cooking thing work in some way, shape, or form. So it's like, so I had Pizza Hut had been looking for a part-time manager or like a shift manager, and so I took that job and thinking, get a management position, work my way up, can hopefully make a living doing that, and I can see why they had hired someone so easily with no experience, because they were just trying to find anybody to keep that place afloat.
Mm.
And not talking down to any restaurant or any Pizza Hut, but like they're not there anymore. So obviously things weren't working, and they didn't end up working once I left, because that was the shortest I've ever worked somewhere. I'd started there in February that year and then left in November. And it was the only job I more or less walked out of. Basically, I had an interview and I didn't show up for my shift when things went well with the interview. That was when I actually went and started working at Mavers for the first time.
So how are you feeling like with the are you back in the meds at this point when you go back to cooking and you're like
Yep, at this point I've consistently kept taking them. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. Effexor, I think. It was that, and I was taking a fairly high dose.
And what was that like compared to the other one? Any different?
Just I think just stronger, like overall, like really holding you in that middle position,
Okay.
Yeah. It was one of those things that you didn't doubt. Well, that's one of the things with taking like any antidepressant. You don't really notice because you ease your way into it. It's not until you don't take it that you realize something's wrong. Like I remember like missing a dose and just like it messes with your head so much. This always creeps people out whenever I say it, but if I missed a dose, I could feel my eyes moving in my head.
Really?
Yeah. Like, there's no other way I can describe it. It makes my skin crawl thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I was consistently taking the meds while I was working at Pizza Hut. And then started at Mavers. And that was the thing, is I started in November, which isn't a good time to start at a restaurant because once January hits, things are going to die down, and those people are going to lose their hours first. I was one of those people. But I got lucky and started at Montana's when they first opened. So, yeah, and it was right about then when I had decided I wanted to stop taking them. Because, I thought, this new job, I'm first there. I can start to turn things around for myself. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, it was about a year or so before that I started drinking again, but not like started drinking again. Was like allowing myself to have a beer here and there. Yeah, and I can honestly say since then, there's only been like the odd time where I've blacked out or come close to blacking out, and it's always been like a special occasion. Like it's always just been fun. It's never been to escape anything. But yeah, so like I'm not drinking heavily. I think I've got a better handle on things, but I'm at a stable job. Like it's the middle of winter in Montana, it's just booming. So like I'm not worried about losing work. Like I think I've got this, so I stopped taking my meds the proper way. Like talked to a doctor first. Got lower dosages so I can wean myself off them. But yeah, and then I've worked at Montana's for touch over a year and was starting to end up in the same place as always. Like, I don't want to be here.
And do you think that was really related to work?
Like the not wanting to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just wasn't a fan of the environment I was in. And working at a commercial restaurant, I had a taste of working at restaurants that make their own menus. And to me, that was a better place to work because there's more heart going into the food. Like you actually care about what you're making. As with at a commercial restaurant, you're making something that someone in an office somewhere in a different province has decided to serve,
There's less creation.
Yeah.
It's more of a
product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was really taking me out of it. So I actually went back to Mavers at that point. And, worked at Mavers for a year and a bit.
So what was it like getting off the meds? And did you start to feel, what was it like getting off the meds?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say it was good, but like it definitely didn't get worse. I didn't find myself getting depressed again, which is a good thing. Yeah. But like, I generally seemed unbothered by it. Like, it was like at that point maybe I didn't need them, or I was genuinely had better thought process at that point. Wasn't being hard on myself. That was another thing. Wasn't constantly wallowing failure or being down on myself or being hard on myself.
Where did that come from, you think?
Just I don't know, like it was like I just got tired of being hard on myself. Like it wasn't getting me anywhere. Being, like telling yourself you're no good. But at the same time, like there was also a part of me that didn't want to be dependent on them. Like it's just I didn't see that as being a proper end game for it. Like being dependent on it the whole time. I wanted to be happy on my own, make my own happiness, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I wasn't really doing anything outside of work. Like, I, go home, get a little stoned, play video games,
Mm-hmm.
hang out with friends here and there
Mm-hmm.
when I had the time. Because, again, I'm cooking, so schedule's sporadic. It's not really lining up with anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got like the full day Monday off.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so.
It sounds like the environment really did affect you
Yeah.
while you were cooking.
Yeah. And even like in my last few years, so just trying to remember like just timeline wise when I went back to Mavers and I had started there in like April, like going into the summer. I think that was 2018, so 4-ish, 5-ish years ago. And like I'm still around these same people who are dependent on substances. Like, I'm surrounded by it, right? But and I don't want to be like that anymore. Because I mean, at the same time, I was very much go home. One of the first things I do is get a little stoned, and you make the argument, well, it's better than drinking, right? But at the same time, being stoned all the time isn't an answer. But don't know if I was going somewhere with that or not.
So being in the environment, like that was common in that environment in the kitchens where everyone's kind of dependent on something.
Yeah.
And that's very common.
Yeah. Yeah, it's common in I think just about every kitchen I've ever worked in.
Yeah, it seems like that from stories I've heard, and like I only worked a couple, but
yeah.
What do you think it is? Do you think that this might just be like a general question, I'm more just like throwing it out there. Like I wonder if it's like the environment that creates it, or it's the people that go to that environment in the first place. People that environment attracts. Something to do with the culture. I don't know.
Yeah. No. You're definitely onto something. Like I am curious as to how that really started, because it felt like it was always a thing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know if working in that environment for so long helped bring that out of me, or it's not necessarily discouraged. Like, I didn't do it so often when I went back to Mavers that time, but before that it wasn't nothing for me to get stoned and then go to work and then be able to do my job. But in reflection, it's like I'm getting stoned going to work because I don't want to be there, and this makes it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. There's also, I found like, I had a good friend that worked at restaurants as well, and I remember like, there's like this kind of like this thing. I think it goes back to like the environment, culture, like of like not taking breaks at all.
Yeah.
And then like working your ass off while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of akin with like sometimes with like trades jobs, especially like hard labor trades jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like more like the skilled stuff, but like hard labor where it's like,
yeah,
like roofing, for example.
Yeah.
Or they're like work their fucking bag off all day on a roof and then they go get hammered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, for some reason it goes like, I worked at a Christmas tree farm in northern New Brunswick. And it was hard labor every day, and it was like, for some reason, hard labor and getting hammered drunk goes together. But I think there's something that like, not that it's right or wrong, but I think there's, well, I don't, it's probably not good actually, but I think there's something to do with in the restaurant industry with like there's no breaks. It's like you're working like social hours, like nights and weekends, and you're kind of like in this dungeon, and it's like really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everyone kind of prides themselves on how hard it is, and then you kind of like drink hard too. It's kind of like a hard living kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like that was that was the attitude of a lot of the guys I've worked with.
Mm.
Yeah. Like you bust your back all day and then you get fucked up.
Yeah. So I know that you don't work in a kitchen anymore,
Yeah.
and that's been a recent thing. So how has things changed for you since you stopped working in a kitchen?
I don't get stoned as soon as I come home anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's just occasion. Like I don't even do it every day anymore.
Mm.
Honestly, like once every other days. I mean, like I've puffed the odd evening, and that's the thing. It's a very mild amount. I have no tolerance now. That's great. Doesn't take much to get me messed up now. It's wonderful. I'm saving so much money.
Right. Right.
But yeah, there's that, and well, I mean, I don't hate going to work anymore. Like, I feel better about it in the mornings.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the alarm goes off in the mornings. I still don't want to get out of bed, but that's just because I was sleeping. I was having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just genuinely feel better about my job, about the people I work with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we actually get to take breaks and have conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they have conversations. I sit there quietly and nod.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, and it's just like it's just the people I work with are significantly different because, well, I mean they're not hardened cooks,
Yeah.
No one's actively talking about getting fucked up at the end of their shift.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like hardened. Like it seems like there's like this thing where it's like, like like Gordon Ramsay, like you get shit on too.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of gets like, it's like this thing where like you get shit on, then there's a shitload of work to do, and if you mess up, then you get shit on more. It's really hard. It's like this really hard thing.
Yeah.
You got to do. And it's like this pride of being like this hardened cook, and like then you're kind of like hard and jagged and drinking after or during sometimes probably. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not uncommon either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you can tell these people who like getting fucked up aren't happy with their lives.
Mm.
Like, you can still have a happy life at home. Like, if you're working in a restaurant, like, I work with lots of people who have either they don't want to go home after they're done work, or they can't wait to get home. But the fact that they're somewhere where they don't want to be at all at any point in the day is going to make that home life worse. Mm-hmm. Whether you've got a happy home to go to, or if you're miserable at home. Mm-hmm. Like you're just going from one place that makes you unhappy to another. Mm-hmm. Like it was right before, about a month before I quit. I had come home, and I just had a shitty day, and my girlfriend just looks at me like she's like she doesn't have to ask if I had a good day or a bad day. She can just tell.
Yeah.
And well, it was busy day. Before we even opened, someone quit, and like if someone quits or even calls in sick in a kitchen, it fucks the whole day. Like you need everybody all the time, or else everybody else's job gets harder.
Yeah. Like no dishwasher. Someone's got to wash all the dishes and stuff.
Yeah, and then God love her, she helped me find a new job, and like had told me Hanson Electric was hiring, and it was almost like something coming full circle,
Yeah.
Well over 10 years after I've gone gone to college for electrical, and now that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you stopped taking the meds?
Yeah. I've been off them for 4 or 5 years.
How long have you been working at the electrical job now?
Since October, so I think 7 months.
How would you say you feel now compared to where you were the whole time you were working in kitchens?
Like almost like a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't, and like this is, and like I don't work with people that make me miserable because they come to work miserable. You know what I mean? Like, sure, not everybody shows up like happy, bursting full of rainbows and sunshine, but you know, we're all there to do our job. We're not walking in cranky, snapping at everybody like I've seen in every kitchen I've worked in.
Yeah. Right. That's really interesting, man. I think it's crazy and interesting how much like environment can affect mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like over the past couple of years, kitchens are just slowly getting worse, and like you know, it worries me because I mean I made a lot of friends in the kitchens, right? And like I don't want them to be miserable. I don't want them to feel like how I felt. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I think breaks would be like a first step. If you could manage it how you like breaks
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well, that's like the smoking culture in kitchens. Like that's some places that's how you get a break is if you go for a smoke.
Yeah, that's
because
the thing.
because they know if you don't have your smoke, you're gonna be cranky. So just go have your cigarette, kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's like you don't smoke, so you can't go outside.
Yeah, and
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I started smoking back when I lived in Fredericton. I smoked briefly. Quit shortly after I moved here, though. I mean, that wasn't doing anything for me. You know, because I mean, you know, between alcohol and weed, I like to get, you know, a little messed up. Cigarettes don't mess you up, so I didn't see the point.
What do you think's been the biggest thing for you in terms of, like you mentioned earlier, with like your habits, daily habits, and things like that?
Well, so like over the years, like I haven't really exercised a whole lot, or like been physically active outside of work. And with cooking, you're technically being physical, but you're just standing in one spot for hours at a time, occasionally lifting the occasional box of fries. Like you're not actually, like your body's not really accomplishing something. And I'm saying this just, like I don't work out a whole lot now, but that's because I feel like my job is making me do something physical. Because I think internally our bodies need to accomplish something, you know, like it needs to feel like it's done something. And the lack of doing anything physical over the years wasn't doing me any favors. Like it was definitely making me feel worse. And the friend that I had moved in with, like he was big into working out, and you know I wavered. Like there were times when I was working out consistently, and then there were times that I wasn't. And when I'm not, like, you don't feel as good. You know, it's good to give the whole body like a bit of a strain. You know, you don't have to work. You never have to work yourself to the bone. Like I used to do a lot of walking. Yeah, and that was, of course, that's a good exercise to start with, but you can't just expect just the walks to sort your things out, you know?
Yeah, I think walking can help a lot.
Yeah.
Even just like mental, like physically, And then also like sort of like mindfulness.
Yeah.
I found anyway, like that's huge for me for walking. It's just like
Yeah.
if I could really think if I go for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think much
100%.
clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, nice long walk. And that year, we're going to backtrack a while, but when I was still living with mom and dad, I used to get stoned and go for walks all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like those were some of the highlights of my day because, well, I mean, my time off is when my friends are working, so I've got nothing else to do. So,
Yeah.
get stoned and go for a walk. And I mean, for the time, it was probably a good thing, but like, because I mean, this is back when I'm 20. This is solid 10 years ago, so it's good to be. It's good to get up and do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't sit and wallow in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the traps you can fall into if you're working in a crappy environment. Is you go home and you just sit in it. Like you carry it with you.
Yeah.
You don't do anything about it.
It's like carrying the darkness with you.
Yeah.
Just in a dark cave, and you kind of never leave because you just go home and you just kind of stay in that mental state.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just, you go home and like you think what is, I have to go back there tomorrow. I don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's terrible.
And you're right back in there again the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just a cycle that repeats itself. You know, and if you're doing a little bit of exercise or just being something active, like just take your mind off it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Imagine just like anything positive. Like even just hanging out with friends or having like a hobby, like just something, having like your own life apart from. That's the thing too, kind of with kitchens. I think it's feels like the people that work there kind of don't really have a life outside of there.
No, they don't.
They kind of end up living like that because there's so much time.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. You kind of accept that sporadic schedule, and you're just like, well, I can't do anything now because I can't make plans to do anything. So this is just my life. I'll just get fucked up and forget about it. It's all good. But no, it's just a hard life to live.
Well, thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for sharing all this stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there anything you would say to someone that was in a similar situation? Like, let's say they're working in a kitchen, or maybe they're just in a similar kind of mental state that you were.
Specifically to anybody in a kitchen, if your heart's not truly in cooking, you've really got to think of a way out. And I mean, you don't have to get out immediately. You don't have to turn around and walk out of your job, but you've got to find a way to plan an escape. You know, because I've worked at a bunch of different restaurants. It's almost always the same. And I mean, you know, unless you're one of the lucky ones. But I mean, if you're one of the lucky ones, you're not thinking the way I was. But if you've got like just this perfect, flawless team, you all get along, you know, everybody's happy, you know, stay, because you're probably happy too. But if you're surrounded by miserable people and you don't like where you are, you've got to leave. Like, you know, and I mean, there were times when maybe, like I said, like I made lots of friends in the kitchens, and I might feel bad for abandoning them or think I'm abandoning them because I leave. But they're miserable and they're not leaving. That's on them.
Yeah. It's like leaving hell and feeling bad for
anybody else that's burning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, buddy. Shawn's first podcast.
Thanks.